Hello everyone, welcome back to Luis Discusses Everything, and in today's video we're going to discuss the 2024 presidential election prediction as of August 2024. It's been a while since I made a prediction, but a lot of things have changed as of late. The last video I made was about Kamala Harris surging in the polls, and the one previous to that I mentioned Kamala Harris being switched on as the new Democratic presidential nominee. Today, I'm just going to give my first prediction close to 79 days before the election, the 2024 presidential election, to give you like a snapshot as to how things are at the moment and who do I think would win if the election were held today. Okay? So, without further ado, this is my electoral college map. This is how I'm assuming things will go, right? The ones in dark red and dark blue are the states that are sure to go either side of the political spectrum, and then there are not much of a swing state type situation. With the exception of Texas. Can't believe I left Texas there. Texas, I believe, will go to Trump by a lean margin. So that leaves us with Trump at 217 electoral college votes and Harris at 224 with the 7 toss-up states in the category. And yes, I'm including North Carolina. Yes, Nevada, North Carolina in that category of toss-up or swing states. States that are likely to flip to one side or the other and that are likely to determine the presidential election. The tipping point state, in my opinion, will be Pennsylvania. Whoever wins Pennsylvania will most likely win the election. So let's start off at where we're at. On the national stage, we have Harris up as of August 18, 2024, with on the average of the polls, and this is starting from the time in which Biden dropped out over here. We have Harris up by 2.6% amongst all the polls. And this is 538. So remember, 538 kind of gives more weight to higher quality votes than others. So she's up by 2.6% on the polls as of now. This is on a national level. As we know, this country doesn't elect its presidents based on the national popular vote, but on the electoral college. So let's see how they're doing. These candidates are doing on a swing state level. First, let's look at Arizona. Now, I'm not going to go based on alphabetical order. This is just how it appeared on my screen. So in Arizona, Harris is up by 1.3% on the aggregate of polls. And Democrats actually outperformed their expectations in this state. And it's going to be a very close state, I would say, in the election. But I think this is fairly accurate. I think Harris is definitely up in Arizona. And I think also on the Senate side, you have the Senate candidate also leading in the polls, Ruben Gallego, by as much as 9 polls. I don't think 9 points. I think he's going to win by 9 points, but if Mark Kelly's election is any indicator, he won in 2022 by 5 points, and he was losing by 1 point. Against his opponent, Republican opponent, whose name escapes me. But with that in mind, I think Harris has a very good shot with the help of Gallego to take the state. So in this election prediction, I do give Arizona to Harris by a tilt margin in this electoral college map. So let's go on. And that brings her total up to 235. Let's go on to the next state, Michigan. In Michigan, Harris is up by 2.6%. This is a scary scenario, I would say, if you are a Democratic supporter, because Biden was up by a considerable margin in 2020. Let's look at the 2020 margin. He was up by 7.9%, and he ended up winning by almost 3% in the election. So that's a 5-point swing. If the polls end up being swinging that way, in the case of in the same way they swung in in the election as they swung in 2020. Harris could lose, but we have the wild card of Kennedy, and Kennedy is going to be in the Michigan ballot. So if Kennedy is taking 5.3% of the vote, Harris could also win that state, and I see her winning that state by also a tilt margin, brings her total up to 250. Now let's move on to Georgia. Georgia is a state where we have Trump winning by 1 point, and Georgia's polls have been fairly accurate, very, very accurate. If we look at how they were in the 2020 election, Biden was up by 1.2%. He ended up winning by 0.2. So, given the accuracy of the polls and with Kennedy on the ballot, I do still see Trump winning Georgia there by a tilt margin. It could go either way, but it's just like all these states. Look at these characterizations, tilt margins. I do still see Trump winning Georgia by a tilt margin. In the case that gives Trump 233. In the case of Nevada, it's another case where polls were a little bit wild. Let's look at how the race was in 2020. In 2020, Biden was up by 5.3%. He ended up winning by about 3 points, if I'm not mistaken. So a 2-point swing towards Trump. So that's not a good look if you're the Harris campaign. But then again, you also have Kennedy in these polls, so that can be a determining factor. Something that might help Harris in this state is the case of Rosen, the senatorial candidate on the Democratic side. She's winning by 9 points in this state, which could actually help propel the presidential candidate, which is odd because usually it's the opposite. The presidential candidate on the top of the ticket tends to help the senatorial candidate. So we'll see how it goes. But for now, Trump has a slight edge in the state of Nevada by, again, a tilt margin. I don't think any of these states will be won by more than a tilt characterization. Let's move on to the state of Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania it's another interesting, potentially worrying time for the Harris campaign. So she's up by 1.4% in the polls. Kennedy being in the election as well, taking 4.2% of the vote in this hypothetical matchup. In 2020, Biden was up by as much as 4.7%, and he ended up winning by 1. So a 3-point swing. So in that case, Harris would lose in this swing scenario. But I think Harris still has the slight edge in this election, also with the Walz appeal. I think it's going to be very, very close, but I think that Harris might carry Pennsylvania by a tilt margin as well. That brings her up to 269, just one electoral college vote shy of winning the election. Now, in the state of North Carolina, it's another one of those states where it's always been close in the past couple of cycles, ever since hasn't been won by a Democrat since the 2008 election with Barack Obama winning the election. We have Trump up by 0.3%. Trump took it last time in 2020, and he was up. Biden was up by 1.8% in the polls in 2020. He still ended up losing it by let's just shy of 3%. Trump is up by 0.3%. It's close, but I still give it to Trump by a very tilt margin as well. So let's look at our final state in this matchup, which is the state of Wisconsin, with Harris up by 2.9%. In the aggregate polls, Kennedy still having that effect, 4.3%, taking more from Trump than Harris. In 2020, you had Joe Biden up by 8.4%, and he won by less than 1%. So that's a 7-point swing. Crazy. This is another state where I think Harris might be benefited by Tammy Baldwin, and her reelection up by 7 points, as much as 9 points in some of the polls, although these ones are hard to believe. And I believe that could help propel her to victory in this state, and by, once again, a tilt characterization, giving her the magic number, putting her above the magic number of 270 with 279 electoral votes, to Trump Vance 200 and 55 electoral college votes, making Harris the first female president of the United States in this hypothetical scenario. So please tell me what you think of this matchup. What do you think of this electoral college prediction? I think this is an insanely close election, and it shows here, as you can see on the map, with Harris winning the election in this hypothetical matchup. But tell me your thoughts. If you think this is correct, thumbs up. If you don't, thumbs down. Share this video with your friends, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.